The rental car's headlights cut through the desert darkness as Lucas Conrad drove toward the address his lawyer had given him. 2 weeks early. The contractor job in Qatar had wrapped ahead of schedule, something about the client's financing falling through on the expansion phase. Lucas didn't mind. It meant 14 extra days with Emma. 14 extra days with his daughter, his 8-year-old girl with her mother's auburn hair and his own stubborn chin. The divorce had been ugly 3 years ago, but they'd settled into a rhythm. Every other weekend, plus holidays split down the middle. Tracy had gotten primary custody because Lucas traveled for work, structural engineering jobs that took him overseas for months at a time. He tried to fight it, but the judge had been clear. A stable home environment trumped a father's good intentions. Lucas had accepted it. He sent money, called twice a week on video chat, and cherished those weekend visits like oxygen. Emma was his entire world. The GPS directed him off the highway onto a residential street in Henderson, Nevada. New development, cookie-cutter houses with desert landscaping. When Tracy had called 6 months ago to tell him she was remarrying, Lucas had felt nothing. The marriage had been dead long before the papers were signed. She'd met someone named Craig Hubbard, worked in property management, seemed decent enough from the background check Lucas had quietly run. He'd met Craig once, briefly, during a pickup. Clean-cut guy, firm handshake, called Lucas sir despite being roughly the same age. Emma had been quiet about him, which Lucas had noted but not pressed. Kids needed time to adjust. Lucas pulled up to the house at 8:47 p.m. The porch light was off. No cars in the driveway, though the garage door was closed. He texted Tracy, "Here for pickup. You home?" No response. He tried calling. Straight to voicemail. Lucas sat in the rental car, engine idling, feeling that old familiar tension building in his shoulders. The same tension he'd felt in Kandahar when something was wrong, but he couldn't see it yet. The same tension before the building collapse in Manila that killed 2 workers because someone had cut corners on the rebar. His phone showed 8:52 p.m. Their custody agreement was clear: pick up anytime Friday after 6 p.m., return Sunday by 6 p.m. It was Sunday night. They should be here. Lucas killed the engine and got out. The neighborhood was quiet, most windows dark. He walked up the driveway, pressed the doorbell. Waited. Pressed again. Nothing. He knocked. Hard enough to rattle the door in its frame. Tracy? Craig? It's Lucas. Silence. Lucas's jaw tightened. He walked around the side of the house, through the wooden gate that wasn't latched properly. The backyard opened up, concrete patio, covered seating area, and an above-ground pool catching moonlight. Standard desert setup. That's when he heard it. A small voice, hoarse and broken. "Daddy?" Lucas's blood turned to ice. The voice came from the corner of the yard, behind a storage shed. Lucas moved toward it, his construction boots crunching on gravel, and then he saw something that would change everything. A dog kennel. Large, metal, meant for a big breed. Emma was inside. His 8-year-old daughter, curled in a space barely 3 feet by 4 feet, wearing a dirty t-shirt and shorts, her knees pulled to her chest. No blanket. No water bowl. Her face was streaked with dried tears, and her lips were cracked. "Emma." Lucas's voice came out strangled. He dropped to his knees beside the cage, his hands finding the padlock. "Baby, I'm here. I'm here. Daddy, you came early." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Her eyes were sunken, her skin pale even in the moonlight. "You weren't supposed to," Craig said. "Said I had to stay until you picked me up. Because I lied." "What did you lie about?" Lucas's hands were shaking as he pulled on the lock. "Industrial strength, heavy duty. The kind you'd use for a storage unit." "I told Mommy that Craig yelled at me. But Craig said I was lying, that he never yells, and liars have to live like animals until they learn." Emma's eyes welled with tears. "I've been good, Daddy. I've been so good. I didn't cry much." Lucas felt something break inside his chest. Something that had been holding back a lifetime of controlled violence. The discipline he'd learned in the Marines before he'd gotten his engineering degree. The restraint he'd practiced through a decade of construction sites and difficult clients and frustrating legal proceedings. "How long have you been in here?" Since Friday dinner. After you called." Emma's voice cracked. "Craig put me out here after Mommy went to bed. He said when you called on Friday night, I told you about the yelling. He said that was telling tales. Friday. It was Sunday night. Almost 3 full days. Lucas stood. His hands were steady now, perfectly steady, the way they used to be when he was clearing buildings in Fallujah. He walked to the shed, found a bolt cutter hanging on the wall among the garden tools, and returned to the kennel. The lock gave way with a sharp crack. Emma tumbled out into his arms, her small body trembling, lighter than she should be. Lucas held her, felt her ribs through the thin shirt, smelled the urine and fear and desperation. She'd been in that cage for nearly 72 hours. Daddy, Emma whispered against his chest. Don't look in the pool. Please don't look. Lucas's eyes moved to the pool. There's something scary in there, Emma said, her voice small and broken. Something dead. Lucas carried Emma to the patio, set her down gently on a chair, and walked to the pool. The water was murky, the filter clearly not running. In the shallow end, floating face down, was a golden retriever. Lucas recognized the dog from Emma's video calls. Biscuit, the puppy Tracy had gotten Emma for her 7th birthday. The dog's body was bloated, had been in the water at least 2 days. Lucas turned back to Emma. What happened to Biscuit? Emma's face crumpled. Craig said Biscuit was too loud, barking all the time. He said she couldn't finish. Lucas didn't need her to. He could see the scenario clearly. Craig Hubbard, angry at a barking dog, probably drunk or just cruel, drowning the animal. Emma witnessing it, or finding out, and making the mistake of telling her mother. Craig denying it, calling Emma a liar, punishing her. And Tracy had gone along with it. Or worse, hadn't been there. Had left for the weekend, left Emma alone with this man. Lucas pulled out his phone and took pictures. The kennel, Emma's condition, the pool with Biscuit's body. Then he scooped Emma up again and carried her to the rental car. We're going to the hospital, he said quietly. Then the police. Emma grabbed his arm, her small fingers digging in with surprising strength. Daddy, Craig said if I told, he'd say I was lying about everything. He said nobody would believe me. He said Mommy would choose him. Lucas looked down at his daughter's face, saw the fear there, the exhaustion, the desperate need to believe her father could fix this. I believe you, Lucas said, and I'm going to make sure he never hurts you again. But even as he said it, even as he started the car and drove toward Henderson Hospital, Lucas knew the truth. He'd seen enough of the legal system during his divorce. He knew how these things worked. Tracy would get a lawyer. Craig would deny everything. They'd claim Emma was acting out, that she'd put herself in the kennel, that the dog had drowned accidentally. And even if charges stuck, even if Craig saw the inside of a jail cell, it would be minimum security for animal cruelty and maybe child endangerment. A year, 18 months, out in 6 on good behavior. That wasn't justice. That wasn't even close. As Lucas drove through the Nevada night, his daughter sleeping fitfully in the back seat, he felt something crystallize in his mind. A plan, still rough, still taking shape, but solid in its core principle. Craig Hubbard had put his daughter in a cage like an animal. Lucas was going to teach him exactly what that felt like. But first, he had to play this smart. Document everything. Go through the motions. Let them think he was just another outraged father working within the system. And then, when they least expected it, when they thought they'd gotten away with it, Lucas would show them what happened when you hurt his little girl. The hospital emergency room was bright and sterile, full of weekend night activity. Lucas carried Emma through the automatic doors, and a triage nurse immediately took notice of the small girl in his arms. She needs help? Lucas said, his voice steady. She's been locked outside in the heat without water for 3 days. The nurse's expression shifted from professional concern to alarm. Within minutes, Emma was on a gurney, and 4 in her arm, a doctor examining her while asking Lucas questions he answered with precise detail. He'd learned in the Marines to stay calm under pressure, to deliver information clearly and without emotion. The doctor, an older woman named Dr. Marilyn Emery, ordered blood work and scans. She examined the abrasions on Emma's knees and elbows from the metal cage, the severe dehydration, the minor frostbite on her fingers from the cold desert nights. I'm calling Child Protective Services, Dr. Emery said quietly to Lucas. And the police. This is criminal abuse. I know, Lucas said. I want to press charges. 2 Henderson police officers arrived within the hour. Gordon Rose, a veteran cop with gray temples, and his younger partner, Evan Mack. Lucas walked them through everything, showed them the photos on his phone, gave them the address. We'll send units to the residence, Rose said, making notes. Where's the mother? I don't know. She's not answering her phone. Mack exchanged a glance with Rose. Any chance the mother was involved? Lucas wanted to say yes, wanted to throw Tracy under the same bus as Craig. But he had to be smart here. I don't know what she knew, but she left Emma with him. That's negligence at minimum. The officers left to investigate the scene. Dr. Emery admitted Emma overnight for observation. Lucas sat beside her hospital bed, holding her hand while she slept, and made phone calls. First, to his lawyer, William Rollins, a sharp family attorney who'd handled the divorce. Rollins sounded groggy. It was after midnight, but snapped awake when Lucas explained the situation. Jesus Christ, Lucas. Okay, listen carefully. Don't talk to anyone else without me present. Not the ex-wife, not her husband, definitely not their lawyer when they get one. CPS is going to investigate, and we're filing for emergency custody tomorrow morning. Will I get it after this? Hell yes, but there's going to be a process. Criminal charges against the stepfather, possibly the mother. Family court proceedings. This is going to get ugly. I don't care about ugly, Lucas said. I care about Emma. I know you do. I'll meet you at the hospital first thing. Try to get some sleep. Sleep wasn't happening. Lucas sat in the uncomfortable chair, watching Emma's chest rise and fall with each breath, and thought about the look on her face when she'd seen him at the kennel. The desperate hope. The fear that he'd come too late or not at all. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You had no right to take her. Bring Emma back now, or I'm calling the police. Tracy. She must have gotten home. Seen the broken lock, called Craig. Lucas didn't respond. Let her call the police. Let them all see what she'd allow to happen. Another text. Craig says you're overreacting. Emma likes to play in the kennel sometimes. She's dramatic. Lucas's grip tightened on his phone. He typed, "Where were you this weekend?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then, that's none of your business. You're not my husband anymore. You left our daughter with a man who locked her in a cage for 3 days. Where were you? No response. Lucas waited 5 minutes, then put his phone on silent. By morning, the picture became clearer. Officer Rose returned with an update. They'd found Tracy at a hotel in Las Vegas with Craig Hubbard. Weekend getaway. They'd left Emma alone in the house from Friday night until Sunday evening. Alone, except for the time she spent locked in the kennel. Craig claimed it had been Emma's choice, that she'd locked herself in as punishment for lying about him. He insisted he'd told her she could come out any time. The padlock? He said Emma must have clicked it shut by accident. The dog in the pool? Craig claimed Biscuit had jumped in and drowned while they were away. Just a tragic accident. Tracy corroborated Craig's story. Said Emma had been having behavioral issues lately, acting out for attention, that Lucas's frequent absences had created abandonment issues. They're not being charged? Lucas asked Rose, his voice dangerously quiet. CPS is investigating. The district attorney is reviewing for possible charges. These things take time. My daughter was in a cage for 3 days. I know, Mr. Conrad. I have kids too, but we need evidence that will hold up in court. Right now, it's his word against a traumatized child's, and defense attorneys love to tear that apart. Lucas thanked the officer and returned to Emma's room. She was awake, eating breakfast, looking small in the hospital bed. Daddy? Do I have to go back? No, baby. You're staying with me now. Forever. Lucas nodded. Forever. Emma's face relaxed for the first time since he'd found her. Good. I don't like Craig. He's mean when mommy's not looking. Tell me about that. Over the next hour, Emma described 6 months of psychological torture. Craig hadn't hit her. He was too smart for that. But he'd found other ways. Locking her in her room for hours as quiet time. Making her stand in the corner facing the wall until she apologized for imaginary infractions. Taking away her toys, her books, her comfort items as punishment for being too loud or too needy. And Tracy had either not noticed or not cared. Lucas listened, his face a mask of calm, while inside he cataloged every detail, every cruelty, every calculated act of abuse. William Rollins arrived at 9 a.m. with good news. The family court judge had granted Lucas emergency temporary custody pending a full hearing. CPS had formally opened an investigation. The district attorney was considering child endangerment charges against both Tracy and Craig. But I'll be honest with you, Rollins said outside Emma's room. Even if charges stick, we're looking at probation or minimal jail time for first offense. And Tracy might walk entirely if she claims she didn't know what Craig was doing. That's not enough. I know it's not, but it's what the system can do. Lucas nodded slowly. The system. He played by the system's rules his entire adult life. Followed the regulations, filed the proper permits, respected the chain of command. And the system had just told him that the man who'd caged his daughter like an animal might spend a few months in minimum security. Set up the custody hearing, Lucas said. Give me full custody. Whatever it takes. I'm on it. Emma was discharged that afternoon with instructions for follow-up care. Lucas checked them into a hotel near the hospital, ordered room service, and sat with Emma while she ate her first real meal in days. She was quiet, still processing, occasionally looking at him like she was afraid he might disappear. "Daddy," she said finally, "why did Craig do that to me?" Lucas chose his words carefully. Some people are broken inside. They hurt others because it makes them feel powerful. Is he going to jail? I don't know yet, but he's never going to hurt you again. Emma nodded, satisfied with that answer. She fell asleep early, exhausted, and Lucas covered her with a blanket before stepping onto the hotel balcony. Below, Las Vegas sprawled in neon glory, a city built on the principle that the house always wins. Lucas had never been much of a gambler, but he understood odds, understood probability, understood that sometimes you had to stack the deck in your favor. Craig Hubbard thought he'd gotten away with it. Tracy thought her lawyer could smooth this over. They both thought Lucas was just another angry ex-husband making noise. They were wrong. Lucas pulled out his phone and made a call to Qatar to his old site supervisor, Hector Schwartz. "Lucas, my friend, I heard you got back early. Everything okay?" "No, Hector, I need a favor. I need information." "What kind of information?" "The kind that costs money and doesn't leave a trail. I need someone to look into a man named Craig Hubbard. Everything. Where he works, who he knows, what skeletons are in his closet. And I need it fast." There was a pause. "This about your daughter?" "Yes." "Then it's not a favor. It's a duty. I'll make some calls. Expect something by Wednesday." Lucas thanked him and hung up. Then he called another number, a Marine buddy named Scott Cassidy who now ran a private investigation firm in Los Angeles. "Talk to me," Scott answered. "I need surveillance. Full package. Target is Craig Hubbard, Henderson, Nevada. What am I looking for? Anything I can use. Drugs, gambling, other women, dirty money, parking tickets, unpaid library books. Everything." Scott was quiet for a moment. "Lucas, I have to ask. What's this about?" Lucas told him. The whole story. The cage, the dog, Emma's terrified voice. "Jesus," Scott breathed. "Okay, I'm on it. But Lucas, be careful. This sounds like you're building a case for something that's not exactly legal." "Maybe I am. Then you didn't hear it from me. I'll have eyes on him by tomorrow." The pieces were falling into place. Lucas spent the next 3 days in Henderson, taking Emma to therapy appointments, meeting with lawyers and CPS workers, and collecting evidence. Dr. Emery had documented everything medically. The police had photographed the scene. Emma's therapist, a compassionate woman named Eleanor Marks, was gently drawing out the full scope of the abuse. On Wednesday, Hector's information arrived via encrypted email. Craig Hubbard's background was interesting. Property management was his current gig, but he'd been fired from 2 previous jobs, one for harassment, another for misappropriation of tenant funds. Nothing that had led to charges, but a pattern of behavior. He had a sealed juvenile record, which meant something ugly in his past. His credit was marginal, debts piling up, living beyond his means. Scott's surveillance added color. Craig Hubbard liked to gamble, frequently visiting casinos on weekends. He had a temper, documented in security footage from a bar where he'd shoved another patron. He'd been fired from his property management job 3 days after Lucas had found Emma, Word had gotten around, and his employer wanted distance from the scandal. Tracy's background check was equally revealing. She'd met Craig at a difficult time. Her own career as a medical receptionist had stalled, she was struggling with bills, and Craig had presented himself as stable and successful. She'd rushed into the marriage, Lucas realized, because she needed someone to share the burden. That didn't excuse what she'd allowed to happen to Emma. The custody hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. Lucas's lawyer was confident but cautious. Tracy's going to fight this, Rollins warned. She'll argue that Craig acted alone, that she had no knowledge, that she's a fit mother who made a mistake. She left Emma alone with him for an entire weekend. And her lawyer will say that's not abuse, it's just poor judgment. Lucas, I'm telling you, prepare for the possibility that Tracy gets some custody. Maybe not primary, but visitation. Lucas nodded, but inside, he was planning something else entirely. The hearing arrived. Family court, Judge Brenda Cunningham presiding. Lucas wore his best suit, sat beside Rollins, and watched Tracy enter with her attorney, a slick operator named Dale Dean. Tracy looked tired, defeated. She wouldn't meet Lucas's eyes. Craig wasn't there. His own criminal charges kept him away. The proceedings were brutal. Rollins presented evidence. Medical records, police reports, photographs of Emma in the cage, testimony from Dr. Emery and the therapist. He painted a picture of systematic abuse and parental negligence. Dean countered with character witnesses who described Tracy as a loving mother. He argued that Craig had deceived Tracy, that she'd been a victim too, that she'd immediately separated from Craig upon learning the truth. Judge Cunningham listened, asked pointed questions, and called for a recess. When she returned, her decision was measured. Lucas would have primary physical custody. Tracy would have supervised visitation 2 hours per week until she completed parenting classes and therapy. The arrangement would be reviewed in 6 months. It was a victory, but incomplete. Outside the courtroom, Tracy approached Lucas. Can we talk? Through our lawyers. Please. I need you to understand, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what he was doing. Lucas looked at his ex-wife, really looked at her. Saw the guilt there, the desperation, but also the calculation. She was trying to preserve what she could, limit the damage. You left our daughter alone with him, Lucas said quietly. For a weekend. You didn't check in. Didn't call. You chose your new husband over Emma's safety. I made a mistake. No, Tracy. A mistake is forgetting to pack a lunch. What you did was abandonment. He walked away, leaving her standing there. Back at the hotel, Emma was waiting with a CPS supervisor. When Lucas told her the news, that she'd be living with him now, Emma burst into tears of relief. Forever, Daddy. Really forever. Really forever. That night, after Emma fell asleep, Lucas stood on the balcony again and made a decision. The legal system had done what it could. Emma was safe now with him. Craig faced minor charges. Tracy had supervised visitation and some court-mandated classes. But none of that addressed the core problem. Craig Hubbard had hurt his daughter and felt no remorse. The surveillance footage Scott had since showed Craig at a casino bar, laughing with friends, minimizing what he'd done. The kid was being dramatic, he'd told someone. Her dad's blowing it out of proportion. No remorse. No accountability. Just anger at being caught. Lucas couldn't let that stand. Over the next month, Lucas established a new normal. He'd quit the overseas contracting work, taken a position with a Las Vegas engineering firm that kept him local. He'd enrolled Emma in a new school, found a good therapist, and slowly watched his daughter begin to heal. She still had nightmares, still flinched at loud noises. But she was laughing again, playing again, being a kid again. And Lucas was planning. Scott's surveillance continued. Craig had moved into a cheap apartment after Tracy kicked him out. He was broke, bitter, and looking for work. The criminal case was proceeding slowly. The DA was offering a plea deal for probation and mandatory anger management. Probation, for putting an 8-year-old in a cage. Lucas could feel the rage building, but he kept it controlled, channeled it. He'd learned patience in the Marines, learned to wait for the perfect moment to strike. That moment came in early September. Scott called with interesting news. Craig had found a new job, construction labor for a small outfit working on a warehouse project outside Las Vegas. The company was called Ritter Construction, run by a man named Clay Ritter. Lucas knew Clay Ritter, had worked with him years ago on a project in Phoenix. Clay was old school, ran a tight ship, didn't tolerate laziness or incompetence. Lucas made a call. Clay, it's Lucas Conrad. Lucas. Hell, it's been years. How are you? They caught up briefly, then Lucas said, I heard you hired a guy named Craig Hubbard. Yeah, started last week. Why? He's the man who abused my daughter. Put her in a dog cage for 3 days. The line went silent. Then, Jesus Christ. Are you serious? Completely. I have documentation, court records, everything. Why the hell is he not in prison? Plea deal. Probation. The system doesn't care as much as it should. Clay was quiet for a long moment. What do you need, Lucas? Information. His schedule, his habits, who he works with. And one more thing. Name it. Your warehouse project. You still need a structural engineer to sign off on the modifications? Yeah, we do actually. The guy we had lined up fell through. Hire me. I'll consult on the project. Clay, I won't ask you to do anything illegal or dangerous. But I need to be close to Craig. I need to watch him. Lucas, I can just fire him. No, I need him there. Trust me. Clay hesitated. All right, but Lucas, whatever you're planning, be smart about it. Don't do anything that'll hurt your custody of your daughter. I won't. Lucas hung up and allowed himself a small smile. The pieces were falling into place. He started at Ritter Construction the following Monday, working as a consultant on the warehouse expansion. The project was straightforward, reinforcing existing structure to support additional weight loads for a new distribution center. Craig didn't recognize him at first. Lucas had grown a beard, wore work clothes instead of business casual, kept his distance. He observed Craig from afar, watching how the man interacted with other workers. Craig was lazy, cut corners, showed up late, complained constantly. Clay had already received warnings about him from the foreman, Jimmy Tanner, a weathered crew chief who ran the site. That Hubbard guy is trouble, Jimmy told Lucas over coffee. Yesterday he left early, claimed his back hurt. Today he's arguing about safety equipment, says it's uncomfortable. How's the crew feel about him? They don't. Guy's a loner. Nobody wants to work with him because he doesn't pull his weight. Lucas filed that information away. 2 weeks into the project, Lucas engineered a meeting. He was inspecting some concrete reinforcement work that Craig's crew was responsible for when he discovered Craig sitting in his truck during work hours, playing on his phone. You Craig Hubbard? Lucas asked, approaching the truck. Craig looked up, annoyed. Yeah. Who are you? Lucas Conrad, structural engineer on the project. Recognition flickered across Craig's face. Wait, Conrad. You're Emma's father. That's right. Craig's expression hardened. You need to get out of my face. Actually, I need you to get back to work. You're on the clock. You're not my boss. No, but I'm the engineer signing off on this project. And if I report safety violations or incomplete work, it affects everyone, including your paycheck. Craig's jaw clenched. This is harassment. You're targeting me because of what happened with your daughter. What happened? You mean when you locked her in a cage? She put herself in there. And the court agreed. I got probation. It's done. Lucas stepped closer, lowering his voice. The court gave you probation because the system is broken. But make no mistake, Craig. It's not done. Not even close. Craig's eyes narrowed. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You hurt my daughter. And one way or another, you're going to pay for that. Lucas walked away before Craig could respond. He could feel Craig's eyes on his back, burning with anger and fear. Good. Let it be afraid. That night, Lucas reviewed his plan one more time. He'd been gathering evidence for weeks. Craig's sloppy work habits, his violations of safety protocols, his pattern of leaving early and taking extended breaks. Lucas had documented everything with time-stamped photos and logs. But that was just the foundation. The real plan was more elegant. The warehouse project had a critical phase coming up, pouring concrete for new support columns. The timing had to be precise, the mixture exact, the curing process carefully monitored. Lucas was responsible for the structural integrity, and he designed the specifications carefully. Very carefully. He called Jimmy Tanner. I need Craig's crew on the concrete pour next Friday. Can you make that happen? Sure, but why? I want to observe their work ethic up close. From my report to Clay, you thinking of recommending we fire him? Let's see how Friday goes. Friday arrived. The concrete trucks were scheduled for 6 a.m., a huge pour that would take most of the day. The crew assembled early, and Lucas was there with his clipboard and specifications. Craig showed up 20 minutes late. You're late, Jimmy barked. Traffic, Craig muttered. Don't care. Get your gear and get in position. The pour began. It was hot, miserable work, and Craig complained constantly. Lucas watched him carefully, noting every shortcut, every time Craig wandered off for a break, every safety protocol he ignored. At noon, Lucas called for an inspection hold. Everyone take lunch, he announced. But Craig, I need you to stay. I have some questions about the work your section did this morning. The other workers filed away, grateful for the break. Craig stood there, sweating and sullen. Lucas approached with his clipboard. Your section is failing inspection. What are you talking about? The concrete mixture ratio is wrong. The forms aren't properly braced. The rebar positioning is off by 2 inches. All of this is in violation of the specifications. That's bullshit. You're making this up. Lucas held up his phone, showing photos. Here's the evidence. Now we have 2 options. We can tear this out and redo it, which costs the company money and makes you look incompetent. Or you can stay late tonight after everyone else leaves and fix it properly. Craig's face flushed red. You're doing this on purpose. You're sabotaging me. I'm doing my job. Your work is substandard. So what's it going to be? Craig wanted to refuse. Lucas could see it in his eyes, the desire to tell Lucas to go to hell. But Craig needed this job. He was broke, had legal fees to pay, and Clay Ritter was one of the few contractors who'd hired him after the scandal. Fine, Craig spat. I'll stay late. Good. Be here at 7 tonight. I'll supervise the corrections personally. Lucas walked away, satisfied. The trap was set. That evening, as the sun set over the Nevada desert, Lucas returned to the warehouse site. The place was empty except for one truck in the parking lot, Craig's old Ford pickup. Lucas found Craig near the concrete forms, looking angry and exhausted. Let's get this done, Craig said. Show me what needs fixing. Lucas led him to the section in question. The rebar positioning is the main issue. You need to adjust these supports, retie the binding wire, and make sure everything is level before the concrete fully cures. That's going to take hours. Then you should get started. Craig glared at him, but began working. Lucas watched, standing nearby with his clipboard, occasionally pointing out corrections. An hour passed. The desert darkness was complete now, the site illuminated only by work lights. I need water, Craig said, standing up and stretching his back. Break room is bottles. Craig walked toward the temporary office trailer. Lucas waited until he was out of sight, then moved quickly. He prepared for this moment. In his truck, hidden in a toolbox, was a modified dog kennel, exactly like the one Craig had used on Emma, but larger. Industrial size. Lucas had spent weeks acquiring it, modifying it, making sure it was perfect. He'd also prepared the location, a corner of the warehouse's lower level, a storage area that wasn't scheduled for work until next month. Lucas pulled his truck around to the loading dock, backed it up, and began unloading. The kennel was heavy, but Lucas was strong and motivated. He positioned it in the storage area, padlocked it open, and returned to the work site. Craig was coming back from the break room. Craig, Lucas called. I need you to check something in the lower storage area. Possible structural issue with the foundation wall. Now, it's dark down there. There's lighting. Come on, it'll only take a minute. Craig followed, grumbling. They descended the stairs to the lower level, walked through the empty space toward the corner where Lucas had positioned the kennel. What am I supposed to be looking at? Craig asked. Lucas stopped, turned to face him. Do you remember what you said to my daughter when you locked her in the cage? Craig's expression shifted from confusion to understanding to fear. Lucas, whatever you're thinking, you told her that liars live like animals, that she needed to learn her place. It was a mistake. I was drunk. I was angry. I didn't mean. You left her there for 3 days. No water. No food. She was 8 years old, Craig. I know, okay? I know it was wrong, but the court handled it. I'm on probation. I'm getting therapy. It's over. Lucas shook his head slowly. The court gave you probation. That's not justice. That's not even close to what you deserve. Craig backed up a step. If you touch me, you'll lose custody of Emma. You'll go to jail. Who said anything about touching you? Lucas moved fast, shoving Craig hard. Craig stumbled backward, directly into the open kennel. Before he could recover, Lucas slammed the door shut and snapped the padlock closed. Craig crashed against the bars, eyes wide. What the fuck? Let me out. No, Lucas said calmly. You're gonna stay in there for a while. Get a taste of what you put my daughter through. Craig's face went from shock to rage. He rattled the bars, kicked at the door. You can't do this. This is kidnapping. False imprisonment. It's justice. Lucas, let me out right now, or I swear to God. Or what? You'll call the police? Lucas held up Craig's phone, which he'd pickpocketed during the shove. Good luck with that. Craig bravado cracked. Please. Lucas, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about Emma. I was wrong, okay? I was completely wrong. Just let me out and we can talk about this. We're talking now. How does it feel, Craig? Being trapped? Unable to move? At someone else's mercy? It's fucking terrifying, okay? Is that what you want to hear? It's a start. Lucas walked to a folding chair he'd positioned nearby and sat down. He pulled out a bottle of water and took a long drink while Craig watched. You're insane, Craig said. You're absolutely insane. Maybe, or maybe I'm just a father who loves his daughter enough to make sure she never has to be afraid again. She doesn't have to be afraid of me. I'm never going near her again. That's true, but it's not enough. See, Craig, the problem is that you did this to Emma and you felt no remorse. Even now, even after everything, you still think of yourself as the victim. You think the consequences were unfair. You think Emma overreacted. I don't. I heard you at the casino bar. Scott Surveillance picked it up. You told your friends that Emma was being dramatic, that her dad was overreacting. Those were your exact words. Craig slumped against the bars. What do you want from me? I want you to understand what you did. Really understand. Not intellectually, but viscerally. I want you to feel what Emma felt. I get it, okay? I get it now. No, you don't. But you will. Lucas stood and walked toward the stairs. Wait. Craig's voice pitched high with panic. You can't just leave me here. Why not? You left Emma. Lucas, please. I'll do anything. I'll confess. I'll take a prison sentence. Whatever you want. Lucas paused, looking back. 3 days, Craig. That's how long Emma was in the cage. So that's how long you're going to be in yours. 3 days? I'll die. Emma survived. So will you. But I need water. Food. Lucas pointed to a corner of the kennel where he'd placed a large dog bowl filled with water and another with dry cereal. Bon appetit. Craig stared at the bowls in horror. You can't be serious. Deadly serious. See you Sunday night, Craig. Lucas climbed the stairs while Craig screamed threats and pleas behind him. The sound echoed through the empty warehouse, but there was no one to hear. The site was closed for the weekend, and the nearest building was a quarter-mile away. Perfect. Lucas drove home, checked on Emma, who was sleeping peacefully at the hotel, a babysitter watching her, and returned to his own room. He set an alarm for every 8 hours. He'd check on Craig periodically via the wireless camera he'd hidden in the storage area, make sure the man wasn't actually dying, but otherwise, Craig could experience exactly what Emma had experienced. The first night was the worst. Craig screamed himself hoarse, rattled the bars until his hands bled, cursed Lucas's name until he was too exhausted to continue. The camera showed him eventually collapsing in the corner of the kennel, trying to sleep on the concrete floor. By Saturday morning, Craig had stopped screaming. He was conserving energy, sipping water carefully, trying to ration the cereal. Lucas checked the camera footage and saw the exact moment Craig's bravado broke, around 3 a.m. Saturday, when the reality of his situation truly set in. Saturday afternoon, Lucas visited the site briefly. He walked down to the storage area and found Craig curled in the kennel, shivering despite the heat. How are we doing? Lucas asked pleasantly. Craig looked up with hollow eyes. Let me out. Please. I'll pay you. I'll do anything. You're not even halfway through. I can't do this for 3 more days. Emma was 8 years old. You're a grown man. You'll survive. Craig's face contorted with desperation. What if I need to use the bathroom? Lucas gestured to another corner of the kennel where he'd placed newspapers, just like one would for a dog. Best I can do. Craig's expression shifted to pure hatred. You're a monster. No, Craig. I'm just a father. You're the monster. I'm just making sure you understand what that means. Lucas left again, ignoring Craig's renewed screams. Sunday morning, Lucas received a call from Clay Ritter. Lucas, we have a problem. Craig didn't show up for his shift on Friday afternoon. Nobody's seen him. His truck is at the site, but he's not answering his phone. That's strange, Lucas said carefully. Maybe he had an emergency? Maybe. But it's not like him to just disappear. Well, actually it is like him. Guy's unreliable. You see him before you left Friday. Briefly. He was working on the concrete corrections. All right. If you hear from him, let me know. I'm about ready to fire him anyway. Will do. Lucas hung up and smiled. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Sunday evening. As promised, Lucas returned to the warehouse. He descended to the storage area and found Craig barely conscious. The man had clearly pushed himself to the edge, dehydrated despite the water, filthy from his own waste, mentally broken. Time's up, Lucas said, unlocking the kennel. Craig crawled out, unable to walk properly. His legs had cramped from being in the small space. He collapsed on the concrete floor, gasping. Lucas tossed him a bottle of water and a protein bar. Eat. Drink. You need your strength. Craig consumed both desperately, his hands shaking. How was it? Lucas asked after Craig finished. Being trapped? Being helpless? Craig looked up, tears streaming down his filthy face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't understand. I didn't realize what I'd done to Emma. Do you understand now? Yes. God, yes. She must have been terrified. She was. And she'll have nightmares about it for the rest of her life. Craig broke down completely, sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Lucas watched him cry for a moment, then said, Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go home, shower, and disappear. Leave Nevada. Leave the state. Go somewhere far away and never come back. Craig looked up hopefully. You're letting me go. I'm giving you a chance to start over. Somewhere Emma will never have to see your face again. But what about my job? My probation? Violate your probation. Leave. If you stay here, if I see you anywhere near my daughter again, I'll make this weekend look like summer camp. Are we clear? Craig nodded frantically. Clear. We're clear. Good. Because if you tell anyone what happened here this weekend, I have video footage of you confessing to abusing Emma. I have recordings of you laughing about it at the casino. I have enough evidence to bury you so deep in criminal charges that you'll spend the next decade in actual prison. And trust me, Craig, the inmates don't like child abusers. Craig's face went pale. I won't say anything. I promise. Then get out of my sight. Craig stumbled to his feet and limped toward the stairs. At the bottom, he turned back. For what it's worth, Lucas, I really am sorry. What I did to Emma was unforgivable. You're right. It was. Craig left. Lucas heard his truck start up and drive away. Then Lucas spent the next hour carefully dismantling the kennel, loading it back into his truck, and erasing any evidence of what had happened. He used industrial cleaner on the floor, wiped down the bars, and made sure nothing remained. By Monday morning, the storage area looked exactly as it had before. Lucas returned to his regular work schedule. Clay Ritter called that afternoon. Craig never showed up today. Didn't call, didn't text. I'm terminating his employment. Can't say I'm surprised. Guy seemed unreliable. Yeah. Hey, thanks for your work on the structural assessment. Project's looking good. Happy to help. Lucas finished out the consulting contract over the next few weeks, then returned to his permanent position with a Las Vegas engineering firm. Life settled into a new routine. Work, time with Emma, therapy appointments, building a normal life. Emma continued to heal. The nightmares became less frequent. She laughed more, played with friends, started to trust the world again. One evening, about 2 months after the incident with Craig, Emma asked, Daddy, do you think Craig is sorry for what he did? Lucas considered the question carefully. Yes, sweetheart. I think he's very sorry. Good. Because what he did was really mean. It was. But he's gone now. And he's never coming back. Emma smiled, satisfied, and returned to her homework. Lucas received a text later that night from Scott Cassidy, Surveillance shows Craig Hubbard left Nevada in early September. Headed east. Haven't picked up his trail since. Lucas deleted the message and felt something settle in his chest. Justice. Not the kind the courts delivered. Not the sanitized version that let abusers walk away with probation, but real justice. 3 months later, Tracy's supervised visitation was upgraded to unsupervised, 2 afternoons per week. She completed her parenting classes and therapy, and the court-appointed psychologist had cleared her. Lucas allowed it, but watched carefully. The first visit, Tracy picked Emma up from school and took her to the park. When she brought Emma home, Tracy asked if she could talk to Lucas. "What happened to Craig?" she asked quietly. "He left town. Didn't you know? He just disappeared. One day he was here, the next he was gone. Packed up his apartment, violated his probation, just vanished." Lucas shrugged. Maybe he realized Nevada wasn't a good place for him anymore. Tracy studied his face. Did you have something to do with that?" "Why would I?" "Because you're Emma's father, and I know how far you'd go to protect her." Lucas met her eyes directly. "I'd go to the ends of the earth to protect Emma. But all I did was document what Craig did, testify in court, and fight for custody. The rest is just Craig facing the consequences of his actions." Tracy didn't look convinced, but she didn't push further. "Thank you," she said finally, "for taking care of her, for being a good father. That's my job." Life moved forward. Lucas and Emma built a new life together in Las Vegas. He never worked overseas again, choosing instead to stay close to his daughter. They went to therapy together, talked about what happened, and slowly Emma's nightmares faded completely. On Emma's 9th birthday, she had a party with school friends at a local pizza arcade. Lucas watched her laugh and play, saw how normal and happy she was, and felt the weight of the past year begin to lift. That night, after the party, Emma hugged him tight. "Best birthday ever, Daddy." "I'm glad, sweetheart. You know what I wish for when I blew out the candles?" "What?" "That every day could be like this. Just me and you being happy." Lucas's throat tightened. "That's my wish too." Emma pulled back and looked up at him with those serious eyes that were so much like his own. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Anything. That day you found me in the cage, you promised you'd make sure Craig never hurt me again. Did you keep that promise?" Lucas chose his words carefully. "Yes, Emma. I kept that promise." "How?" "By making sure he understood what he'd done. By making sure he'd never come back. And by being here every single day to keep you safe." Emma considered this, then nodded. "Okay, I believe you." She hugged him again and ran off to play with her new toys. Lucas stood in the doorway, watching his daughter, and thought about Craig Hubbard shivering in a cage, finally understanding what he'd put an 8-year-old through. Thought about the fear in Craig's eyes when he realized Lucas wasn't bluffing. Some people would call what Lucas did wrong. Illegal. Immoral. Lucas called it justice. And he'd do it again in a heartbeat. Because at the end of the day, the system couldn't protect Emma the way a father could. The courts couldn't deliver the kind of consequences that would ensure Craig Hubbard never hurt another child. The law had its limits. But Lucas didn't. He closed the door, locked it, and went to tuck Emma in for the night. She was already in bed, clutching her favorite stuffed animal, looking small and safe in her own room in their apartment. "Good night, Daddy. Love you. Love you too, sweetheart. Forever and always." Lucas turned off the light and stood in the hallway, feeling the weight of what he'd done, and the certainty that it had been right. Craig Hubbard was gone. Emma was safe. Justice had been served. And Lucas Conrad could finally sleep at night, knowing he'd kept his promise. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.